Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commands and commands us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. So here we are. We're going to be talking about Judah's inheritance and Caleb's family. Now, the where we are right now in our timeline, this is our little boring timeline number deal here. So here we are at chapter 15 in Judah, and then I think for the next couple, well, now let me just go ahead and say this right now. Next week, we'll probably not have a class because we will be traveling. We're going to go see our number 2 granddaughter in her 10-year ballet recital. And so that means she's been in ballet for 10 years, and she has a solo recital and that she choreographed herself. And so that's a big deal. So we're going to be going up there and seeing Anne-Marie, and then having to come back then pretty soon because then our next granddaughter is graduating from pre-K, pre-kindergarten. So that's going to be a fun time to go see her do that. So doing all these grandpa things that I get to do. So anyway, we'll probably not be meeting. I'll let you know later on, see how it's looking and where we are next week. So you'll get a break for next week probably. All right, so let's go ahead then. And are there any comments or questions from the last couple of lessons that we've had, or what, from last week, if you even remember what last week was? So, all right, no comments or questions so far? Okay. All right, good. Tonight we're going to be talking about the allotment of the land for the tribe of Judah, and it starts out with verse 1. Now the allotment for the tribe of the children of Judah, according to their families, was as far as the border of Edom, southward to the wilderness of Zin at the extreme south. Their southern border was from the lower end of the Salt Sea, from the bay projecting southward. Then it proceeded south of the ascent of Akrabim and passed on to Zin, and then went up by the south of Kadesh Barnea and passed on to Hezron and went up to Adar and turned toward Karka. It passed along to Asmon and onto the Wadi of Egypt, where the border ended at the sea. This will be your southern border. Okay, now that had a lot of hard names in it. Okay, so in it places that, oh goodness, we don't even know where they are anymore in some cases. But this is their southern border. This is the one where it would pretty well define how far Judah was going to get. And the one thing that's real interesting about this is that this land for Judah was promised even before Israel had conquered the land, and that you find in Numbers 14:24. And the reason for that is when Joshua and Caleb went out with the spies, and Joshua and Caleb then were the only two that came back with a true report that said, yes, we can go in there and conquer the land, God will be with us. And all the other spies said, nope, we're just a bunch of grasshoppers ready to get stomped on. And so, no, we can't go do that. And so the Lord said, okay, well, for Judah, everywhere that he tread, I'm going to give him that land. And so basically what evidently Caleb, when he got to the area of Hebron, he liked that area, and he tromped all around there, and I think they brought in some of the big grapes and so forth, and so that area that he had seen was what the Lord said. Okay, yeah, you can have that. And then you remember then that in the last week that he actually came and says, "Hey guys, remember what the Lord said. Remember what Moses said. I want that mountain, and I'm 85 years old, but I'm just as strong now as I was 40 years ago, and I'm well able to take that mountain." And indeed he was. And so you remember he wanted that. That's the land that he wanted. Okay, so now you know me and maps. So here's the map, and I apologize for the kind of fuzzy there, because I was trying to get it as big as I could so that you could read it. But this light green area here is the land of that was given to Judah. Now, one of the things that's interesting, and here is Hebron. This is where here's where Caleb then said, "Okay, that's where I want to live. That's where I want that space there." And so he settled in there, and then the land actually went on down further. And now this area over here, I don't know if you can see my cursor here that's going right along Judah, under where it says Judah. Now this is called it's the Wadi of Egypt, or there's another name for it that I can't remember right offhand. But in other places where they're talking about the land that God gave to Israel, they say the river of Egypt. Well, this is what they're talking about here. They're not talking about going down to the Nile. That was I know that you'll see pictures in all over the internet where it says, yeah, it goes down to the Nile and it goes across over to here, and basically that God has promised half of the world to Israel based on these, going down to the Israel to Egypt, and then across all the way, and it takes up half of Saudi Arabia, and then most of the Middle East then becomes Israel. Well, no, that's not. I don't figure it that way. I don't reckon it that way. But that this area here is called the Wadi of Egypt. It at one point it was a stream. In fact, if you look on Google Earth even today, you'll see that this area here, you can see an ancient riverbed that stretches along this area here, and it kind of goes over here like that. And it was, who knows what it was like 3,500 years ago, but you can still see the evidence of an ancient riverbed that's still there today. The landscape over there does not change all that much. And then they also talked about coming down to Kadesh Barnea, and there are those that say that, well, Kadesh Barnea is just another word for Petra, the city of Petra, and but we don't know. And then other places say that no, Kadesh Barnea is like down here someplace. So we really don't know. A lot of these these names and everything, they've changed over the years. Some of them they're just way out of we have no clue where they are. And but it's interesting that as time goes on, and archaeologists are finding out different things. As Israel keeps building new settlements and so forth, or building new highways and so forth, they bump into old places where there had been cities or something, and they stop everything, reroute the highway, and then the archaeologists get to go in there. They start digging up and find all sorts of stuff, like just I was reading last week in biblical archaeology that they'd found, so they'd had some tablet that mentioned the uh, Moabite king Balak. And so they were just so astounded that this thing actually mentioned a king that the Bible had mentioned. And so they said, wow, really, this maybe, the Bible was a little bit more historically accurate than what we had thought, that it was just going to be a, fairy tale and so forth. So anyway, they're always finding neat stuff in Israel, and it proves the point again that the land of Israel is the land of Israel. It was not the land of the Palestinians, which that word is a made-up word. So we've gone over that. All right, so here's another depiction of that southern border of Judah, and it comes down here, and I think to, of course, the modern border of Egypt, of Israel, comes down here to Elat, and then you got Petra over here someplace, and it just runs right up to the Dead Sea, and from there on up the Jordan and so forth. So this the Wadi El Arish is what this is called, and it was called the River of Egypt. So whenever you see some of these deals that talk about the land that was promised to Israel, just remember that when they say the River of Egypt, that this is what they're actually talking about, that and rather than going all the way back to the Nile. All right. So let's see if there's any. Yeah, here's Petra here. Interesting place. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything else out there that would be kind of interesting to point out at this point. No, I don't think so. All right. And again, another picture of the 12 tribes. Some of these, they're just a little bit more clear and so forth. Here, the Wadi Al Arish, the River of Egypt, right here on the bottom. It comes over here to Kadesh Barnea or Petra, and then running on up. So, and we'll talk about where Dan and Simeon and Benjamin are in a minute. So, any questions so far on that? I know it's geography. It's kind of boring sometimes and nerdy, but that's sometimes it's interesting to try to. It's important to try to understand some of the geography and the history that goes into what makes our people who we are. So anyhow, any other or any comments or questions? Okay, then let's go ahead. Now the eastern border. Now that's a simple one. The eastern border is the Salt Sea to the end of the Jordan. The border on the northern side was from the Bay of the Sea at the end of Jordan, and then it went up to Beth Hogla and passed north to Beth Arabah, and then went to the Stone of Bohan, son of Reuben, and it goes on and on, and all of these different names. We could read but I would probably lose half of you if I kept reading all of those hard names. Just defines where the northern border is, and it ended up going to the sea. Now let's go back and look at that northern border. What they're talking about is from here, where the Jordan tied into the Dead Sea. You can kind of see that, hopefully, and then it actually it took over Jericho and Jebus. Okay, now this is also part of the tribe of Benjamin in here, and finally it ends up, it winds around these different valleys and so forth, and it ends up over here at just south of Joppa, which is Haifa, which and then right up north of there is Tel Aviv. So this is basically kind of, it ended right there where the northern border of Gaza is today. So and you can see that. Okay. And you also have Dan in here too. All right. So the eastern border, that's a piece of cake. We know how that one was just real easy. You go over the bottom of the Dead Sea up to the top of the Dead Sea, and that's their eastern border. Now, whether they claimed the west side of the Dead Sea or the east side of the Dead Sea, we really don't know. For all intents and purposes, it's all the same, because they wouldn't have navigated on the Dead Sea. Nothing would cross the Dead Sea, and be tough to drown anybody in the Dead Sea, because you can't sink in the Dead Sea. And that's the northern border. Then was basically from the north end of the Dead Sea, kind of winding around and so forth, and it ends up kind of in a northwesterly direction to the Mediterranean Sea. And of course, the western boundary is the Mediterranean. So now, and it says the western border was the Great Sea, which is the Med, and its coastline. These are the borders around the children of Judah according to their clans. Now, you have to, it's kind of interesting that when they gave them the land, when God gave them the land, they divided it all up. This land was far from being totally pacified and conquered. In fact, Caleb then had to go back in and refight the sons of Anak, which were supposedly giants and so forth, and because they'd already come in there and beat them once, and then they went back up on their northern campaign. Well, those sneaky old giants just snuck right back into Hebron, and so when Caleb came back to claim the land, then he had to chase these guys back out, chase them all the way back over to Gaza, that area on the coast, and that's where also the Philistines were. So the people of the sons of Anak were a different race and different ethnic group than the people that occupied the coastal regions of what is called Israel today. Gaza, and then on up north to Joppa and on so forth. That was kind of occupied by what they call the Philistines, which were descendants of a seafaring people that they kind of sea gypsies, I guess you might call them, but they would sweep into an area and kind of take over the culture and the place, and they're pretty good warriors. And so Israel had a problem with the Philistines for centuries, literally centuries, until David finally subdued them. And so now here's we're going to get to this interesting little story here. Now to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, he gave a portion among the children of Judah at the command of Adonai to Joshua, Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron. Arba was the father of Anak. And so Caleb drove out from there the three sons of Anak, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, children of Anak. Then he went up from there against the inhabitants of Debir. Now that's you remember that Debir had already been conquered before, some 5-6 years earlier, but they didn't leave an occupying force there. So all of the people that they had chased away and that they hadn't killed had moved back into this area of Debir, which is at that point was called Kiriath Sepher. Now Caleb said, "I will give my daughter Aksa as a wife to the one who attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it." So Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's kinsman, captured it. So he gave him his daughter Aksa as a wife. This story here raises some questions. We already talked about Caleb driving out the three sons of Anak. And then they came to this city called Debir. And Debir had been a pretty fortified city before. It did not fall easily. And so now they were having to fight it again. And so this is a case where the Bible does not really tell us all that was going on. All right. You have to remember that when you're studying the Bible, that it is not an all-conclusive story where everything and every character and everything that was being done is told. Because here he's going up into battle, and he says, "Okay, whoever conquers this, I'll give them my daughter in marriage." And so lo and behold, there's this guy who was named Othniel, and the way that the language was translated from the Hebrew into the English was that this guy Othniel, son of Kenaz. Well, remember, Caleb was also a Kenazite, a son of Kenaz. He said that he captured it, and so he gave him his daughter Aksa as a wife. Now, what would that mean? That, okay, if Kenaz, the same Kenaz that we're talking about, Caleb's would also be Caleb's father, then that would make Othniel the younger brother of Joshua. I mean, of Caleb, the younger brother of Caleb. So if that would be the case, then that would mean that Caleb was giving his daughter to his brother, and so that his brother then would be marrying his own niece, which is a marriage relationship that is prohibited in Torah. So we have to kind of look at some of the language there. And I know I read several commentaries. Some of the ancient Jewish commentaries said, yeah, it was Joshua or Caleb and Othniel were brothers, that or they were half brothers or something like that. But then others said, well, no, because being the son of Kenaz, there's lots of places in the Bible where it says this is the son of that, which they really mean in if you knew the genealogy, that there were a lot of generations in between there. You know, you could say, yeah, so-and-so was a son of David. Could be 5 or 6 generations difference in there. So the best we can tell, I think, is that Othniel was probably a cousin to Aksa, and that was a permissible union. So anyway, that's what happened with the Othniel, who was already kind of a leader in the group, and some of the midrashes that I'd read said that, oh yeah, that Othniel and Aksa already had this thing going. You know, they had their eye on each other, and so that Othniel was definitely an acceptable mate in the eyes of Aksa. And how they get that, it's again, it's midrash, and so these guys come up with some of that stuff, and it's interesting, but don't build doctrine on it. All right.
An interesting study would also be about the giants in the land, which seemed to be such a big hindrance 38 years earlier.
Yeah.
And now there's just a few of them, apparently, where I have to wonder if maybe there weren't so many giants in the land in the first place, or if they diminished dramatically over the next generation.
Yeah, either way, I mean, who knows? I suspect that there probably weren't all that many. And because, when they were, there was that one king that they defeated, and I'm having a senior moment, they talked about it wasn't Og, it was the guy at the king of Sihon, I believe. They said that his bed was 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. But he was the last of his people. And so, and everyone was very thankful because, making 13-foot beds is kind of tough. So, so there may not have been that many people. And even if there were giants at that time, possibly they were genetically a weaker link, kind of like what we see today with people who are giants. They don't last as long as say a normal person, a regulation sized person, like Andre the Giant. He didn't last. He didn't go to 70 years old or 72 years old. I think he was maybe in his 40s or something like that when he passed away. And so I don't know. There's just a lot of questions. It's one of those things that make you want to go, okay. So anyway, verses 18 to 19. Now, when it came about when she came to him, that she persuaded Othniel to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What do you need?" And she says, "Give me a blessing," she said, "for you have given me land in the Negev. You should also give me springs of water." So he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. In the King James Version, it's kind of funny because she said that she persuaded Othniel, her husband, to go to Caleb, her father, and ask for this field. And then the next sentence in the King James Version, it says, "And when she got off her ass, Caleb asked her, 'What do you need?'" And it was just funny. That's the way it kind of caught me funny. But that was what it said. And so in the Tree of Life version, it says, "When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, 'What do you need?'" So anyway, just kind of funny sometimes how that the King James Version has a little bit different thing. So it looks like that this girl, this young lady, Aksa, was just as robust and ambitious as her father Caleb. I mean, he was a guy that he was going after what he wanted. He wanted that mountain of he wanted the Horeb area and Hebron area, and so he went after it, and so she had already been given a portion of land, evidently, as because what she's asking for is, okay, yeah, you gave me land, but that's way down in the south. It's in the Negev. It's dry. You ever been down there, Pops? It's terrible. And so she says, I need some place that's got some water in it so that we can prosper. And so we don't really know where it was that she was talking about, but there is a place that does kind of fit that category of an upper spring and a lower spring. So it would more likely have been back into a mountainous region of right around Hebron, which it's kind of mountainous, and I've shown you pictures of it where there's got some mountains and so forth. But for all the world, I mean, I looked out at the Negev and some of the places driving back up into Israel from, we come from Petra back down to Eilat, and then driving on back up through the land there. It was it all looked kind of rough, and it certainly was not West Texas. That's for sure. It wasn't a panhandle where it's just flat, desert stuff. It was all hilly and gullies and so forth. Very, very rough territory, kind of like the Badlands up in the Dakotas. Were just really, really craggy and rough. So, but they say it could have been that modern city of Kermul. And so what she was asking for, the Hebrew words for these springs she wanted water was gula mayim, and it's only found here and in the parallel passage. If you go to Judges, the first chapter of Judges, a lot of what was written in the first chapter of Judges regarding Aksa and Caleb and so forth, it's recorded almost word for word. And so it was just kind of interesting, and that's the only two places that you'll see this word here, the gula mayim. And so this applied to two distinct adjoining places, something that was upper and then something that was lower. And so possibly then it would have been a mountain slope someplace that she decided that's what I want, and where it had water up in this a higher spring and then down at the bottom. So we really don't know what that was. But I mean, the gal had a little bit of chutzpah to say, hey, look, you've already given me some land. Well, I want something else. I want more. And the word that she asked for, the blessing, was not, okay, come over here and please bless me, my father, and then you go, may you be like Sarah and Rebecca, right? No, it was, I want you to give me something else. I want you to give me some land, some good land that's got water in it, and she says, what can I grow with no water? Duh. And so that's kind of what she went to ask for, and she got it. And Caleb actually had 3 sons in addition to this daughter that he had. So, okay, he's got 3 boys and only 1 girl, daddy's little girl. So anyway, he gave it to her. And that's, I thought that was kind of cool because she actually had her own inheritance. And that kind of plays into the same thing with when the daughters of Jehoshaphat, whatever, I can't remember their names. No, Jehoshaphat. Anyway, there were Moses, talking about divvying up the land and so forth, And these daughters went to him and said, hey, look, our father didn't have any boys. So you're just telling us that then we're left with nothing because our father did not have any sons? And so Moses says, okay, I don't know the answer to that. And so let me go back. And so he went to the tent of meeting and he inquired directly of God. And God said, no, you can give them, women can have an inheritance just like the men can, which was a vast departure from the customs of the Middle East of that time and 3,500 years later. There's still areas of the Middle East where women are nothing but chattel, not cattle, chattel, meaning they're property. They don't have rights. Look at Saudi Arabia, where the women until recently couldn't even drive a car. So God was, these were his people, special people, and he did things in a much different way than what the population around the Middle East did. And so he gave special treatment. I mean, they gave equal treatment, I guess you'd say, to the women. And then you saw Yeshua doing the same thing of putting women on a level playing field with the men. And so I don't really know how I got onto that. Okay. Then the next 42 verses lists like 100 and I don't remember 114 or 116 or it's over 100 towns and cities. This is and it was just a listing. It's the only place that you're going to find that to that extent in the in Joshua, where they listed all these cities. And that was, I guess, because of the prominence of Judah. Judah was going to be foremost in all of the Israelites. And so they listed out, and it talked about the idea that there were over 100 cities along with their villages and areas. So who knows how many little enclaves of population that was, but they took the time and the effort and the trouble to outline each and every one of those. So it's very important, I think, that they would have given so much ink to just talking about that. And then the last verse kind of sets things into place. Okay, it says, as for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out. So the Jebusites continued to live among the children of Judah in Jerusalem to this day. Well, to this day was sometime prior to the reign of King David, because in around 1000, if I remember correctly, 1000 BC, that's when King David then took over, conquered the city of Jebus, which was we know it as Jerusalem, and he went up through the Gihon Spring. All right, so we don't know. That area was also the area given to Benjamin. We'll talk about that in later weeks. But and also down in the Zelophehad. Thank you, Anjana. I knew that somebody was going to pick that up. Good. All right. Those were the daughters that asked about inheritance, and God said, sure, they can have inheritance. And So just one more reason why God's people are special. So anyway, within this allocation of Judah, let me get back to you can see. Let's see here. You can see that Benjamin had an area up here that actually encompassed Jerusalem, and then you had Simeon down here. But Simeon was small, and they eventually just absorbed into Judah. Benjamin, not so much, because you still remember that Paul the Rav Shaul, the Paul the Apostle, he said that he was from the tribe of Benjamin, so they still had some identifiable groups of people, and he said that he was from the tribe of Benjamin. Now, the guys here in Dan, the tribe of Dan, well, they had so much trouble from the Philistines that they decided, well, okay, we're just not going to do this, and they migrated actually from here up to here. All right, and it's so that, and if you remember, Dan is one of the places where Abraham went through there when his nephew Lot was captured by those four kings, and he took off, and I think with 318 men or something like that. And he chased them all, and he stopped there at Dan, so then he went on up to Damascus and defeated these guys, brought them all back, and so forth. So anyway, that's where that happened. So Dan here actually moved up to here. And you'll hear me say that later on in another lesson. But yeah, it's kind of cool to stand there in Dan and say, you know what? Abraham went through these gates. He walked right through here, some who knows, 5,000 years earlier than me. And so I just thought that was kind of cool to sit there at the city gates of Dan.